Uh, hey, Rodney, how's everything going? It's
Hey, you
Happy
just threw a
Tuesday.
flame on me. What happened?
We're just getting started on the show today because Andy's at the control. And just so, what did you have a good weekend?
I had a great weekend. Andy, tell me about your weekend. What'd you
Oh,
do?
golly.
Mine's
Well,
the same. Golf, not much.
first things I want to say is hi to Philip and Wendy for rattling my cage enough. And so we're going to start out today like we do every Tuesday with Rodney's rates. Oh, God. Okay, Rodney.
All right.
I know that you're just going along with it, but trust me,
Yeah,
the show's just getting started. So we're going to
perfect.
show
I
you.
got you.
Okay, so here we go.
Here-
We're going to start with the numbers.
Here we go. Well, I'll throw this at you at first. We're trending, pretty lightly today. Not much change of anything. It says, down 6 basis points from 109. As you can see, it's pretty flat today. Our service is advising us to carefully float. As we talk, minutes or what is it later today? Maybe an hour, maybe pretty close to right now. But Fed minutes are speaking, and I don't think there's a whole lot of news coming from that. Maybe some insight on what the rate policy is going to be, or any kind, just maybe some insight on that. That's about it from the meeting today. But we've been talking, and all of our technical data, Andy, keeps telling us that the rates should be better. The rates should be trying to get better. Instead, you see this decline here, right? That when it goes down this way means rates are getting worse, right? So I'll go to an update I got this morning. I thought with what's going on that's keeping these rates where they're at, or keeping them higher.
Right.
We've talked a little bit, on the show. We've talked several times about bank runs and things like that. With the banks, this is in billions, by the way. This bank deposit line is in billions, and you see that consumers are pulling their money out of bank deposits. It's not a bank run like this. Through, I think, May 10th or even up to date, it's only 3%. Okay, so the bank is handling this it's very manageable. But you can see the consumers are getting into markets. So the cause of this is, the pressure that with the higher interest rates that the bank has to make more money on that loan, because that's what they're borrowing the Fed funds rate at. And so it's putting so much pressure on them. They're seeing a decline in their deposits. So they're having to raise capital by selling mortgage-backed securities and treasuries, things like that, to raise capital. And
Right.
that is what's keeping us from, the technical factors that should be actually making our rates get a little bit better. And we'll see this play out, but I really don't know how long it'll last, because not everybody has all these assets to sell over and over again. So I think it'll play out, and our technical factors will get back and get our rates. I think they're going to improve. So,
Well, and I say this every week, and I said it just a couple of minutes. Your chart is reversed from what we're looking at. So when that goes down, interest rates goes up, and vice versa. Correct? Yes.
Yes, it's upside down, basically. When it's going down, our rates are getting, mortgage rates are getting higher. when it
Okay.
goes down
All
like
right.
this.
All right. And we did, even a few minutes ago when we were mistakenly, my bad, thought we were live a couple of minutes ago. So we've gotten to compress and smooth out our intro, which was really good today. The basis points drop lifted 5 basis points just from when we weren't looking. So,
Yeah,
and it
just gets
seems
better by the second.
better by the second. And so it seems to me, and I think this is proven out time and time again, that with what's going on with the debt ceiling and that issue, when that's uncertainty, that's when it translates somehow into mortgage rates. When things are uncertain, it just costs more because nobody knows. I wish I could explain that.
I mean, consumer confidence has got to be pretty high when it's the largest purchase in their life, right? So consumer confidence is extremely important when job markets, inflation. But we've got several challenges right now. One, we got our no inventory. We got and now we got
Check.
this crazy debt ceiling nonsense we got going on.
There's your inventory right there.
Yeah.
That's
And
in the country.
so we're there's a lot of factors right now, but it they're throwing something new at us every week. It's and it's going to get washed out, and then they can't keep doing it forever. It'll be things like this are going to come up, but this is why I keep saying the Fed never waits long enough to see if their policy's working. Because even yesterday or the day before, I think Jamie Dimon and that St. Louis Fed guy was talking about they should raise the rates again. And I'm like, you're not seeing it. To me, when I'm not an economist, but to me, it's like, man, whipping the kid, but you're not even giving him a chance to see if he's turned his behavior around before you whip him again.
Yeah, but I think that, and I'm not arguing one way or the other, I'm reasonably certain that guys like that are looking at the macro. I mean, really macro. Whereas I tend to look at it onesie twosie as this home buyer, that home buyer, this home seller. I'm micro relative to the real estate market. And so I acutely feel the pain of new buyers that are trying to figure it out where they're looking at, and I'm just guessing, but they've got to be looking at this macro. We got to raise the rates to cure the bigger picture. That's my guess.
Yeah, I think if Chase and Jamie Dimon wants to raise the rates, they're wanting to shut everybody down and buy
The
control
bank.
half the market or something.
Let's talk about this chaos thing. Now, the debt ceiling. We know that that's, and I bet you old Phillips has got some thoughts on this. We're going to see him pop up here in a second. I have little doubt that they're not going to come to terms with something with this debt ceiling. But as I was reading through this, if something like that were to happen, just to game that out, like in war games, said if rising mortgage interest rates were hammered, a default would be akin to dropping a nuclear bomb on the housing market. Mortgage interest rates would almost certainly shoot up. Popular government-backed loans would disappear, which I've learned from you, and I never, even as a realtor, I wouldn't have realized this, that government-backed loans, what percentage of all the loans that you process over the years would you say are government-backed loans? Not necessarily FHA, but
Well, I'd say in our area, it's dropped significantly over the last several years with just how the housing prices have get. But it's uh, in my area. But you got to remember, I have I've always workful office that had a base or near a VA base, right? So they did a lot of loans up there, government loans.
oh, right.
But even then, it was only 25 to 30% of our total volume. But The problem is, Fannie and Freddie they're not considered government entities, but they are essentially government entities in my eyes. I mean, they're ran by the government. They're not private. They're not owned by anybody.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it would create a crazy situation because one, you got millions of people not getting paychecks.
And we've been seeing, here I go, I can feel it coming. We've been seeing, like when we're just looking at your candlestick charts, and if we backed out, zoom out, look at it, it's relatively flat. I think those were the terms that you used. Relatively flat. If you look at it on a second by second basis, it looks crazy. But we've seen buyers applications, if the rates go down just a little bit, like I'm going to say 6.6 or 6.59, applications go up. If they go to 6.99, applications go down. I mean, we're right at that. It seems like people have acclimated to this 7% ceiling because for whatever reason, that seems to be, you mark my words, and I don't know, but I bet you anything. It's like right now it's fixed at, and I guess this is across the board, so it's not for everybody. But currently it's 7.01, which that's just what it is. I'll bet you that it goes down by the end of the day. I bet it backs off of that.
It mean,
might.
like all indicators are saying, yeah, our rates should be, but these, this raising of capital from the banks will have to flush itself out probably before we're going to see that, which I don't think will be too long though.
Right.
But if this default, it causes, I mean, you're talking about after just not even the government employees, millions of people there, but you're talking about Social Security. You're talking about contractors, the government. I mean, everybody. It would not only, like when you say drop your nuclear bomb into our sector, I mean, it's almost the whole country. I mean, now, and honestly, I think it's just doing damage, just dragging this thing out. I think this is part of the reason that our rates are maybe a little bit high when they're, all indicators should say, just the dragging it out is costing us.
And that's precisely what I've been saying is this thing it's just scaring people, and fear never plays well. It only plays well in YouTube clicks. That's the only place that it works, But as far as the economy, so the next thing they said here in this default, it said it would trigger chaos throughout the world market, and it would be worse than 07 and 08. Now, I'm not trying to say the sky is falling. What we're doing is gaming out what if this default did occur. I mean, hold your breath is really what it boils down to, because think about that. If rates go up, and we won't stay on this too long because it's a little more negative than I like. It's a lot more negative than I like. If rates go up, the people that were thinking about selling forget that. They're going to be locked in more than ever. The people that were thinking about buying, there's no way that they're going to, if it goes up to 8%.
Right. I mean, but that's it. The housing market would be an afterthought, in my opinion, just because I think the trouble in other places, like you no longer think about, when people are 8 million plus people don't get paid, and they're basically whatever out, not out of a job. But I don't think like, I'm with you, it's not going to happen, right? But the dragging it out and the nonsense of even getting us here is just, they should just get something the country can, there's no way they're going to let it do it. But I'm like, I think the guy had a good point in this article. He said, sometimes a game of chicken goes wrong and you go over the cliff. I'm like, why are we playing chicken with this? Why don't we just,
Yeah. Well, and to be honest, no side is blameless. I'm not taking sides on this.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like they just got to knock that stuff off. So, bottom line, if it would just be bad news. So, I mean, we should probably go ahead and get off that. But I mean, because there's more to, how bad could it be? So let's go back to the one of the articles I wanted to consider, if you don't mind, Rodney, was good news for homebuyers. Investors may be calling it quits in a pricey housing market. Now let's assume for a second that things settle down, that Biden and McCarthy come to their senses, come to an agreement, and we get to put that behind us. I bet it's going to be at least for a year. So we won't have to think about it for a couple of minutes. When we're talking about good news for home buyers, investors that may be calling it quits, did you know? I mean, here's the good news. When people were saying a couple of years ago, and I kind of was not really listening to it, people were saying investors are coming in, buying up all the houses, making it more expensive. I mean, do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And you know what? That they weren't wrong. They weren't wrong, but the numbers weren't as big as what I thought. Did you have any guesses, if you were to guess the investor percentages of all the homes bought, what they would be?
Well, I don't know what I'd guess, but after I read the article, that was exactly the same thought I had. Was it really felt like they were buying 25% of the market at one time? Is what it felt like.
That is exactly right.
And in seeing it, it was what, less than 10.
Yeah.
But that's a lot. 1 out of 10 is still a lot for an investor.
It is still a lot. But in 2022, it was 8.2% were purchased by investors. And that was down from a peak in February 22 when they bought up 8.9%. And so they're riding that real, gentle sine wave, or, there's not much variance going on. But what it made me think about when I was going through that, because we were all in the middle of that, trying to get house sold, you like that house sold, it's 4 hours later, gone. And they'd update the listings, multiple offers received, deadline is tomorrow at 6:00. Jesus, it was crazy. But and Dave Ramsey says it, and we've been saying it, an overpriced house is going to sit in a hot market just like it will a slow one. Same thing. Mm-hmm. And so what we had to keep teaching people, if you remember this, is don't go after a house that's been listed today. Let it sit for a minute, You just have to do that, because the houses that were priced right, and in this case, probably distressed, because investors, really, most of the time they're looking for an ROI, and that means there's looking for work to be done, which doesn't mean necessarily move-in ready. But when those properties would come online, it would just be a good deal in a good neighborhood. Those are the ones who are getting beat out, because those are the 10%. That's where the investors would roost. Everybody's algorithm.
Yeah.
I know you love that algorithm.
Yeah. That's a great segue. Yes. Nice job, Andy.
The algorithm would send them all to the same place. God.
Well, yeah, it's now I would like to know if this was is this considered the hedge fund numbers that the people buying, because that was one of the things I was concerned about. Was like, did they count, like, because I know a couple builders actually. That's all they work. They don't even open their houses up to the market anymore. They're just like, we're going to build these 50 over here, and they're going to all sold before they ever build them.
Really?
So I didn't know if the hedge fund purchases were, in that 8.2, or is this just people who are buying, like not buying at, hundreds at a time?
Okay, here it is. Smaller, I think this is what you're talking about. Smaller investors, I'm going to call them mom and pops. Typically those with fewer than 50 properties. Isn't that, 50 seems like a lot, but I guess.
But yeah.
But in macro, it's you're nothing, I guess. But so investors with 50 than fewer homes, I'd still say that's significant. Mom and pop real estate investors made up 72% of all investor purchases, up from a low of 52%. So of the call it 9%, 72% of that 9%, my head's going to explode here in a minute because everybody knows how awesome I am at numbers. Mom Wendy and Pop Phil. Fill the pill. 72% were mom and poppers. Instead of what everybody complained about, was it BlackRock? BlackRock?
Yeah, it was, some bunch of
BlackRock.
money.
Certainly progressive real estate. I think progressive, not the spaghetti sauce, but the progressive real estate guys, they're getting blamed, and who cares? I don't care if people are blaming them, but my whole point is people were right. It just that the numbers weren't nearly what I thought.
I thought the same thing. I thought the same exact thing. I was like, what? But maybe for, next show we can dive into specifically our area. Maybe because it felt so much worse here. Maybe it's maybe this is the country averaged it out.
That's going to be, boy, that's a really good point, because real estate is local. I don't care what it is or what segment. I wonder how that would be I bet you we could break it down somehow. I bet they've got the numbers. Certainly because I know that working, of course, there's a difference when you're working, because I've worked with investors and I've worked with people that want to live there too. And their motivation is completely different. They're completely different. I know with investors, they're looking at ROI down the road. They're way smarter than me, But what a different, as a professional, those are two different flavors of buyers altogether.
Yeah, and it's totally makes sense. With the housing prices up, right? The rates are up. So that means the return, if they're financing, the return on their investment's lower. And you couple in the fact that the rent's leveling out, right? So, it does make sense that they're exiting the market right now, and I'm glad for it. I do investment loans for people, the mom and pops buyers are living there,
Yeah. Well, it makes sense that, and we're going to talk about this in this next segment, though, because I got to tell you, I love my investors. I love the way they think. But it would make sense if home values are going up. Now we're getting all kinds of different numbers now, but like 1.5% or 1%, or maybe less, or maybe a little bit in the negative territory. We haven't seen that yet, but we have. It bounced once. But if you're an investor betting on no return for a period of time, it wouldn't be exciting. It would be hard to imagine not being excited this last couple of years if you were an investor. My goodness.
Well, they can go get right now. They can go get 5 or 6% in some kind of CD, right? Money market or something. I mean, they can they can make more than, um, So that just depends on how, um, you know, how well they can manage those rentals.
Well, I mean, let's. I'm going to kind of break rank for a second here, Rodney. When we're talking about how, I'm trying to think this through, everybody, so give me a second. What are the real world effects of the Fed funds rate? What are the real world effects of inflation and stuff like that? Well, I wonder if what Angie has just shared with us is a fallout of that kind of thing. Did you read that?
Yeah, when you said that.
Yeah, I'm really sorry that happened. So here we've got, naturally, what Rodney and I's position is leave us alone, and Jamie Dimon and those guys are like, hit it hard because we don't want inflation, So boy, what a time. What a time.
Yeah, sorry about that, Angie. I hate that. That stinks.
I'd love to. Now, Rodney, Wendy, and Philip and I are going to be doing a show on their investments. We ought to get you in the middle of that too, because he's talking about getting creative. And so I'd love to hear how you do that. Gonna have to sketch, putting you on notice.
Yeah.
Gonna have to schedule that. Anyway, so the fact is, all these moving parts, we've got rates going up, dancing around between, I'm going to call it 6, 5, and 7, because that's what it's been doing for the longest time. For somebody that can tolerate that, then they're buying. We just proved that here recently. But then we've got inventory, which is wrong one. Sorry. We can fix this. Here we go. Bing, bing. Behind the scenes work right there. That's where the inventory is. It's down to nothing, right? And it only makes sense that for those buyers that are left standing, that they're going to have more inventory to choose from, at least a 10% increase, right? Or something like that. Mm-hmm. So that's what this article of this author is trying to say. That's going to be the good news for home buyers. And so, but my argument still is the same, because it works so well. It's just it works so well. Look for houses that are on the market for a while, then make an offer, negotiating down for that, and ask for stuff. Closing costs, possibly, or title expenses, or whatever the case. So, I mean, we're talking about all this tough news, that what if the sky actually fell? This is all bad stuff. Well, we're going to ignore that for a minute. The market's not that bad relative to what's happening with these investors and stuff like that. Meaning it's given buyers a chance.
Right.
Is that good? Okay.
All yes, right. It is. 100% it is. It's scenario, no, but a lot of first-time home buyers didn't have an opportunity in a while. So
yeah,
it's So
let's talk about this for a minute, because here we go. Something else I wanted to talk about. In today's housing market, it's timing over location. And isn't that what we were just talking about? When I'm talking about timing, everybody is on a different spreadsheet, so to speak. When a house gets listed that's on a continuum, of where, and the way that it works, you're never going to, in my opinion, tell me if I'm wrong, Rodney, because I think we've talked about this and we've had some agreement. You're never going to be able to time the market properly. Would you agree with that?
Well, correct. Yeah, you my thing is like this. It's like if you look at a calendar and you're purchasing a home and you decide March 1, I'm going to go start looking, whatever. You find a house on March 15th that you like and you put an offer in. Okay. From March 15th until your closing date, and let's say the average closing date's, 30 days, just so you're going to go from March 15th to April 15th. That are the only days that you have to choose from to lock your loan. You can't go back. You can't go forward. You make a decision almost every single day. Do I lock today? Is it best to lock today? Like you need to, all you're trying to do, in my opinion, is trying to beat the next day or week, right? You're not trying to beat a month or a year or get to a certain rate because that's gone. I mean, that you just have no chance of getting that.
Right.
So it's when you buy is when you buy. You're going to fall on that continuum. Now, if you choose to buy in a higher rate environment, you need to buy, then you're just going to get a higher rate until you have the opportunity to refinance that, to manage that money later down the road. But I read this and nowhere I read the article because I was like, wow, I want to see. I have never seen anything trump location. Like location is the number one of all, for 99% of people and me, right? I only care about location, right? I was like, I want to be in a certain area or whatever. So the timing is the last thing from just really that article was more about people who felt like they missed out, people who felt like, and I'm like, why? If you choose to sit on the sideline or if you wait for a better rate, you are going to miss out because each day that passes, the thing you're buying is getting more expensive. So,
which is, if you read this article, and for anybody that's interested, I'll even tell you what. There it is. That really is, I think, the bigger picture is that because it talks about somebody that bought a home in 2020 and it was a 3-bedroom house. They bought it for $239,000 at a rate of 2.875. I know somebody that got a rate pretty close to that. But that was in 2020. Here we are just a couple of years later. And for the numbers that were worked, what did they change that to? The monthly amount, where did that go? Oh, there it is. Okay. House hunting buyer power has declined significantly since the Martin's home purchase, the 239. In August, the highest price home that a median income household could afford was $593. But since the changes later on, a few years down the road with 20% down, all they could afford was $387. Same people, same dollars, different interest rates. And so the point is the train keeps moving.
The train keeps different moving. Different rate, different sales price, everything. If you don't if you're not locking in, I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's you're buying at a certain period, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yep. But here's let me break something down really quick. When we're talking about time in the market in general, that's when somebody thinks, well, I want to have interest rates be at this amount so that my down payment is, LTV, and would get it. They're trying to manufacture this best price macro level. I'm calling it macro level because I don't know what else to call it. for getting that interest rate. Well, here's what I got to tell you. And I'll do this next week. I'll have this ready because I've got a whiteboard over here. There's a continuum that as a buyer, you can be talking this macro stuff, the percentage on mortgage rates. But the continuum is when somebody lists a house, their optimism is very high, and that's going to include that listing price. It's going to be really high. But as time goes on and nothing happens, they don't get showings. They have few showings. They don't get offers. 2 or 3 weeks pass. That optimism starts to wear out. And as it goes down, then their agent or whoever they're talking to, if they're not, maybe their mom or whatever, I'm not here to necessarily promote agents, but somebody's going to be talking sense to them. How long will it take to get over the rate question? We can't go back to what appeared to be an anomaly. There's no magic wand going to get you to 2%. I'm unclear on what that means. So as people, so I'm going to count on you filling me in, Phil. As people become disappointed or disillusioned, then the prices go down. That's one house. And when you're a home buyer, what you've got to be aware of is that timeline continuum is going on all around you, and everybody's on a different time frame. So when you're talking about timing the market, it's not the market you're timing. You're watching for that particular house, and when it's right for you, then you pull the trigger to buy that house.
Right.
That's the way I see that. And that's where that can get confusing.
I agree. Could you share that screen again for me? And I'll just kind of hopefully try to explain myself.
You mean that?
No, my screen, the shared screen, the rate screen.
Oh, okay.
Like if you're, this is for what, a couple years right here. So if you're looking at purchasing, say, one, you're right here, and you've only got, that's March of 21. So right here, you've got March to April in this time frame to lock in your rate, right? That little bitty window of this whole rate chart, So it's just hard to, it just depends on where you jump in the market at. You just have to time it like that, I guess is all I'm saying.
Right. Well, and I think that, and Philip has a point here. What he's getting at is how long will it take to get over the rate question and go back to what appeared to be an anomaly when there's no magic wand going to get us back to 2%. We've got literally a whole, I'm going to say, I don't know if this is right or the right way to say it. We've got a whole generation of people. I mean, how long did it take for people to get over the crash back in 2011 and 2012 when that's all people thought about? When it was a healthy market between now and 2020 before COVID, and all people talked about was the crash. And I mean, it was like in their DNA was this crash. And so when things got wobbly, everybody started talking about the crash. Well, now we've got people that have been indoctrinated, almost inoculated with 2 and 3%, and now it's going to take time is the answer. That's when we'll get over it,
Right, yeah. Time. Well, we can tell where people stop. People stop buying around 7%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and then the closer you get to 6, the more the market opens up. So it's, definitely 6 or a little bit under we need for the market, for normal kind of, just getting back to a little bit of a normal sales.
Yeah. And I think that you said it. There is a lot going on. We've got this Biden and McCartney standoff, basically, and we've got the feds not being well, and they're never going to be clear. They're hinting as are they going to raise the rates a quarter, or they're going to stay flat? I don't know what they're saying. I'm betting that they don't raise them this time. But I don't know if that's going to happen. But between the debt ceiling and the interest rates, that's a lot to take in for people, for any of us. That's just
Right.
that's a hell of a lot to take in.
Yeah, and the bank, the 3% bank run or whatever they call it, it's that you add that in on top of that, and it is a lot.
Yeah, it is. It is a lot. So I think probably the bottom line with probably the bottom line on this whole thing is that people are telling us that they're okay between it's tolerable, that 6.5 to 7. As soon as if it stays at 6.5 or even just a skosh below, people are going to start listing their houses because they're going to figure that's the best it's going to be for a while, right? And buyers, if they qualify, they're going to jump in and figure that's going to be, the best it's going to be for a while, because the longer it stays at this elevated rate, the more people start to believe that it's not going to be, there you go, that it's not going to come down to that. You say 2%, but I would say 4%,
Mm-hmm.
New Jersey, 2000. Oh, there you go. Right. And before that, when I was growing up, we were 11 and 16%, so.
Yeah, we just got millions and millions of people sitting on these things like that, and it's with the recent increase in values like they've seen, it's hard to give that up.
It is. It is very hard to give that up. So, oh, man, what a day! The more you think about it,
It looked like it's wore you out.
I'm telling you. But I think that the bottom line is, if we were to wrap up today's show, is yeah, things are kind of they're in a weird place. There's a lot of change going on, but the evidence keeps coming up that if people are given a break, meaning the slightest decrease in interest, they're coming back to the market. And the pent up demand, in my humble opinion, is going to be something to be seen when that happens. Something to be seen. And so if you're thinking about what's going to happen if you buy now, I think the chances are pretty good that home prices are going to go up in the future.
Yes, I mean they have forever, so it's hard not to predict that.
It is. Well, Rodney, it was great talking to you today. Angie, thank you for. That's tough news. That is tough news. Philip and Wendy, thanks for letting me know that I had forgotten to press the go live button, which is actually what happened. So I'm sorry about that. But anyway, so I'll do better next week. Any final thoughts there, Rodney?
No, it's I like where we're at. I know we're still I guess kind of dragging along the bottom here with these rates things, but we've got a lot of good, I guess I call them technical indicators that just are, to me, pushing us in the right direction when the things like the bank assets and some in this debt ceiling. As soon as that calms down or gets past us, I think we'll see some positive news on our rates.
Yeah, hopefully by next Tuesday. When does the Fed doesn't? They're like first or second week. Well, hopefully we'll have good news. I'm sure we will on this other thing by next Tuesday. So we'll talk about that then. Anyway, Rodney, good talking to you. Wendy, Phil, thanks again. Ange, thank you so much for being here. And we will talk to you next Tuesday.
All right. See
Where's-
y'all.
Where's my outro button?